Okay, guys, in this episode on the This Is Raleigh podcast, we are talking real estate. I think everyone knows over the last few years, the market in Raleigh has been hot. It's either been hot, hotter, or hottest.
Sounds like summer in Raleigh.
Yeah, it does. You've probably heard our journey. We bought a home in October 2022 when the real estate market was absolutely crazy. But we have our realtor partner, Chuck Belden, who's going to give us a market recap, and we're going to hit him with some tough questions about what's currently going on in whether you want to buy or list your house for sale in the market. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck.
Thanks
Looking forward to hearing your insights.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be gold.
Yeah.
Was it really just 2022?
I think it was 2021.
Yeah, I feel like it was longer than
2021.
Yeah, I have this conversation with you quite a lot. You keep
I don't know
forgetting.
what month or what year it is. It's like
We're coming up to 3 years.
I can't believe it's been 3 years. Really, that's just a blur.
Time flies.
That's crazy. And I've still got so many things I want to do to my house, and I've done probably 2 of them.
That's the story of everybody's life, right? You get in, you're like, okay, yeah, I've got these projects. I'm going to get these done in the first 6 months, and then you're 3 years into it. And
man.
Plus, if you do one thing, and then it leads to you have to do 5 other things to match that one thing, it's like, where do you start? But
that's the story of my life. Yesterday, I decided I was going to pressure wash the outside of my garage doors because they were just collecting dirt and dust and whatever, and it hasn't been done in years. So I did that, and then it led me to look at my driveway, which I was like, oh, maybe I should just pressure wash this. That'll take 20 minutes. 3 hours
3
later.
hours?
Wow.
And it looks
How
a
big
whole
is
lot
your
better.
driveway?
Not that big, but I will never, I'll hire somebody for that again.
Yeah, totally.
I can't believe
worth
3
it.
hours.
3 hours.
Well, I have a back deck that needs the pollen
pollen's ingrained
blown
in it.
off. I'll get to it eventually. Now that
You
the
told
pollen
me you
has
were going to
stopped.
do it on the weekend.
I mowed the lawn,
I think
which was a
you've
stretch.
One thing at a time.
I know. Well, that was last weekend. This weekend, it's
You should be free then.
this weekend's the deck.
Oh boy, yeah, no, it's endless. So yeah, we haven't owned a house for like 15 years. So now that we're homeowners, it's just like all those things but you know, quality problem.
Yeah, they
It
are.
is.
But anyway, we want to hear your give us a brief intro to yourself, Chuck. When you got started in real estate as a realtor, and why, and who you're brokered with, and all that fun stuff.
How brief, because I can do this like
Talk for hours.
Yeah, I can. I'm a
As
little
long as
bit
it's,
long-winded.
as long as it's interesting, you've
Should we
got
put him on the
full
clock? Put him on the clock. Say what?
Well, here's
I'll
I'll condense as best as I can. I used my former career for 10 years. I was a hospitality manager. I was in bars and restaurants, and I kind of thought that's what I was going to do for a long, long time. I loved it. I was really good at it. But the late nights, the long hours, the bad decisions with all the booze and food and all of that. When I was in my 30s, it just wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And so I wanted to make a career change, and real estate had interested me. I had lived in Baltimore for 2 years before moving to Raleigh and bought my first house there. And I didn't feel taken care of at all. Like, this is how it went down. I was managing this nightclub in Baltimore, and one of my bartenders had just got his real estate license. And I was talking about buying a house. He's like, I'll help you out. I'm a real estate agent. And I was like, great. And I didn't know any better. I think I was his very first client, which could work out for some folks. I didn't work out for me. And I was like, what's our first step? And he's like, well, you got to get a loan. I was like, okay, well, where do I go for that? He's like, my roommate is a mortgage lender. Let's talk to him. So I sat down with the 3 of them. And this was in 2008. No, back up. This was in 2007, right before things went really bad.
So I'm not the only one that gets dates wrong. Okay, cool.
No, I'm going to get a lot wrong. So we sit down together, and the conversation goes like this. The lender goes, how much money did you make last year? And I said, $85,000. And he goes, and he gave me a thumbs up, like higher. And I was like, 100,000? And he goes, shook his head no, pointed up again. And I was like, 125. And he goes, you're approved. Wow. And that's how I got my loan for my first house. And that was called a stated income, no documentation loan. And that is part of the reason why the whole financial world collapsed in a way.
Well,
That was in that movie, The Big Short.
That's right.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
We've shared our story, I think, about that, how we got messed up in the subprime fiasco
like
of 2008. And yeah, we were foreigners at the time. We were living in Australia still. And we should not have gotten a loan. Absolutely not.
No, we watched The Big Short and we said, oh my God, that's us.
I felt the same.
We're extras in this movie.
Yeah.
Like we lived this story.
We can laugh about it now. We weren't laughing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I didn't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And my agent, who was brand new, he didn't know any better. That's what was happening at the time. The lender, I hope he didn't know any better, because if he did, that's even worse. But that was the situation I found myself in. So I bought this house this way, and I couldn't afford the house. And a couple of years later, we lost it. We had to short sell it. And that I'd already just moved to Raleigh and actually had bought a house when I came here. And so I had that house there that I was losing, and I was buying another house here, and I shouldn't have had probably either of them at the time.
Yeah.
And the agent I got paired up with here, so I'm coming from Baltimore, and I get referred to this lady who, very, very sweet lady, but she was probably 80 years old. I mean, she'd been around for a while, and she's like, well, where would you like to live? And I said, I'd like to live in downtown Raleigh. She goes, oh, no, dear, you'll get murdered down there.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredibly illegal for a real estate agent to comment on something like that. And then she tried her best to steer me away from living in downtown Raleigh.
Yeah.
And that's also illegal.
Yeah.
And despite her best efforts, we ended up buying a home close to downtown. And then a couple years later, ended up getting out of that house, selling that house. But if I back up, I'd had those two experiences, which I didn't feel taken care of. I didn't feel supported. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to make a career change, I've already bought 2 homes. This seems like this could be fun if I keep doing this. Plus, I think I'll be able to help people better than I was helped. And I wanted people to feel supported and educated.
Yeah.
I was ignorant, and that's all on me. Like, I can't blame the other people. But because I didn't know any better, I got into 2 bad or 1.5 bad situations. So the real motivation was to have a lifestyle that I enjoyed, to be able to own my own business again, and to support other people that I didn't want to go through what I went through. That's how I got started. Yeah. And that was in 2008, so it's been 16 years.
2008. Wow, 16 years. That's crazy.
Like 2008 was yesterday when you just said 16 years.
16 years.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We've gone through a lot since 08. I mean, so I got started when the market was tanking, and luckily here in Raleigh, we didn't experience what most of the country felt because we were somewhat insulated.
Yeah.
And then we went through what we went through in 2020 to 2022, and now we're sort of slowing down again. So I've seen it all.
Yeah, coming from Australia, like we first moved here in 2004, and Raleigh's, it's always been growing. Like people have always been moving to Wake County, and the real estate market, it's always been like a steady projection upwards, not like big peaks or troughs like other cities or states. So it's always been kind of solid.
I think that's what kept us from plummeting during 08 was this just slow and steady appreciation. And the same thing that I think even when things went a little bit bananas in 2020 to 2022 with appreciation, it wasn't on the scale that some other areas around the country saw, that then they just fell off the map. Off the earth, or whatever the saying is, when it went down again. We haven't seen that.
Yeah, I guess, what do you think? Like the job market's pretty diversified. Like you have all the government stuff, the big colleges and universities, you have the tech scene, some healthcare stuff like RTP.
Why that's happening? Is that where you're going?
No, why like the economy's solid here. Yeah.
I think, I'm definitely not an economist or the smartest guy in this room, but what I think has been contributing to Raleigh's growth for so long, one, start with where we're located, right? Like right in the middle of the East Coast, easy access to so many different places, international airport. It's easy to get in and out of this place. We've got wonderful climate. Like you get all 4 seasons, but none of them are too extreme, right?
Yeah.
We've got that. And then you've got RTP. The tech hub has been what's been keeping our area going since the 80s.
Yeah.
You got the government with being the state capital. You got all the universities here, the healthcare, all of these things together. I mean, it's why for the last 16 years, as long as I've been in real estate, something like 50 to 75 families a day are moving to Wake County.
Those
been
numbers
that way
are still,
for long, ever since we moved here. But it just ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
And obviously got put on steroids during the pandemic and stuff. And I read a Facebook update this morning. The question was, what city are you originally from, and what do you love about living in Raleigh? And so many people like from the Northeast, like Boston, New York, New Jersey. She got like the weather was pretty much number 1.
Taxes, number 2.
Taxes, affordability, greenery, just lifestyle, like 4 seasons, like you said. So
how do you see that changing in terms of affordability and taxes? Do you have any?
Well, I mean, it's a relative statement, I think, as far as affordability goes, because it's not one size fits all for sure. I think as far as you take Raleigh compared to most of the country, and I do believe it's still relatively affordable. We did have, pretty big tax assessment increase across the board, where all of our property values went up significantly this year. And if they haven't, they will be, which is just keeping pace with, I think, what's been happening. And I think their goal is to possibly lower the actual tax rate to keep it almost net neutral, so that you don't necessarily pay much more in taxes, even though your property assessed for more. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so I think there are things in place to try and keep Raleigh to be still an affordable place to live. And I think it's just that slow, steady growth year over year is helpful. But that said, I mean, I heard somebody recently say that if you're a single person living in Raleigh and you want to own your own home at like just what our average price point is, which is about $400,000 right now, across the triangle. Every area is a little bit different. Raleigh's very unique, right?
Yeah.
But about $400,000 at today's current interest rates of around 7.5%. Like you gotta make six figures easy.
Yeah, right.
And not have much other debt.
Yeah.
And so
that's a challenge.
That puts a lot of pressure on the job market. That puts a lot of pressure on the housing market. And so I think that's why you're still seeing a lot of people, definitely millennials, opting to rent. They don't want the headache, and maybe they can't afford it as easily. So it's a tough one. It really is.
No, Raleigh definitely seemed a lot cheaper. Well, it was a lot cheaper when we first moved here and bought that investment property, which we, went pear-shaped in 2008. But we couldn't believe the prices coming from, like, Sydney's very expensive. Australia in general is expensive for real estate. And even the house that we bought in 2021, for that price, we'd be lucky to get a block of land in Sydney, let alone a beautiful home.
Yeah.
Everyone in Australia was amazed at the house we bought.
The price.
Really?
Oh, you bought a mansion? It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, the house, honestly, the house, right? Our house here, we live in now, it'd probably be like 2.5 times more expensive in Australia.
Really?
At least double.
Yeah.
At least double.
It's great. Like my parents' house is worth $1 million that I grew up in.
It's like crazy. So it's all perspective, like but obviously, if you move from places like LA or New York, Raleigh's still going to seem really cheap.
Yeah.
I guess they move here and they downsize in price and upsize in square footage.
That's the big thing. There are people a lot moving here from other areas. I mean, right now in this moment, I'm working with clients moving here from Minnesota, California, Virginia, Norway, and
you're chatting to some Australians too, aren't you?
It's some Australians, correct? And then we just got
not
people.
The Aussies.
Yeah, they keep finding us. And then
Australians.
We had nothing to do with that.
And then Florida. So I mean, they're moving here from markets where they're selling more expensive homes. And they might not even be downsizing us. They're definitely downsizing their cost of living.
Cost. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. And plus you have the, what do they call them? They move from the northeast down to Florida. They don't like the heat all year, and they come halfway back, and they call them the halfbacks.
That's so many stories like that. And I think, coming here for the climate and the taxes is a big thing I hear from the Northeast. I mean, New Yorkers, New Jersey for sure, Massachusetts.
Jersey,
yeah, I've heard some of the tax prices up there. It's crazy.
It's like double what it is here, I hear.
Yeah, that hurts. But, okay, so when we bought in 2021, it was definitely a seller's market. Like, we literally had to look at a property and put in an offer then and there.
Yeah.
And there was like multiple offers, all cash offers.
That was ridiculously stressful, right?
Yes.
Because she has good intuition. She's like, yep, this is the place we're going to buy it. I'm like, no, I need to mull over this for at least 24 hours.
You don't have 24 hours.
I want to see more than one house. Yeah. Like, I need to see some options here. But had to put an offer in right there. Multiple offers, high due diligence, and you can chat about that if people are listening, because that's a North Carolina thing, so a lot of people probably don't understand.
Oh, that's a fun one.
But that was high due diligence, which has made us nervous. And so it was absolutely a seller's market. What's the current state of the market now? Is it a buyer's market, a seller's market?
Yeah.
A bit of a balance?
So first, I'm probably going to say this 12 more times while we talk, but
That's
it
fine.
depends. It depends. Like,
Oh, I hate it depends.
It does. It depends on so many things.
A lot of
It's
variables.
It's a cop
What's your
out a
favorite
little
thing
bit.
to say?
I know.
But it
No, I
depends.
usually say a lot of variables at play. That's
the
my
smarter way to say
favorite
it.
thing.
There's a lot of variables. at
I'm
play.
like,
I might
can you
steal
just
that.
make a decision?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of variables at
But
play.
it depends.
It does though, and here's why, right? Because what's interesting about the triangle market is it is so big, so spread out, and there's different like submarkets within all these communities and neighborhoods within these communities. And Raleigh is different from Chapel Hill, which is different from Durham, which is different from Cary, which is different from Wendell. Like there's all these different things. So let's talk generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, it's still a seller's market. Okay. And here's why. Like, people way smarter than me say that a balanced real estate market is when there is about 4 to 6 months of available inventory, available homes for sale. If it were to take between 4 and 6 months to sell all the homes that were on the market, that's called balanced. So in 2008, our average days on market sometimes were 100 days plus, 100, 120, 140, 150 days.
Yeah.
That was kind of a balanced market, even though it was shifting towards a buyer's market. In that moment, okay. So anything less than 4 to 6 months is a seller's market. And the lower it goes, the stronger the seller's market. Currently, right now, our average days on market across the triangle, it's about 41 days.
Yeah.
That's just over a month. That is still a strong seller's market.
Yeah.
The challenge is, well, and let's think about in 2021, 2020 to mid 2022, the average days on market was about 7.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are 6 times what that was, but it's still a seller's market.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, why it depends is because price point matters. If the home is priced appropriately, that matters. Someone can't just slap a sticker on there and say this is $1 million home when it's a $500,000 home.
Yeah.
Expect to get it, right? Every one of these communities matters. How much new construction is being built in there? So there's all these different things. But generally speaking, we're at about 40 to 41 days on market with about 2 months of available inventory when 4 to 6 is balanced.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as time on market, we have some friends who have just listed their house for sale in Cary, and they didn't get an offer on the first day, so they immediately dropped the price.
On the first day?
Yeah, which apparently is what they were told to do.
Okay.
Because if your house is sitting longer than that, people are thinking, "What's wrong with this place?"
See, I don't agree with one day. Like my philosophy when it comes to listing homes, there's 3 things that matter when you're selling a house, and there's within these 3 things you could probably break down to 100 other things. But the most important thing when selling a home is how you price it. It really is. Like, that is your number one marketing tool. If you overprice your home. And like there's data, there's tons of data. Like a smart real estate agent can see what similar homes are selling for. And if you take that data and you just disagree with it and say our house is better because of X, Y, and Z, and you go way over that number, people aren't dumb. They'll see that, and agents will see that. And so if a house is overpriced, and if it sits, it's going to be impossible to get top dollar for that. And now how long it sits depends on what neighborhood. Now, one day I think is too early to tell because there's too many variables that could play into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, one day is just crazy.
What I say, generally speaking, is about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
If after 2 weeks you don't have significant showing, here's how I do it. Right.
Or a solid offer.
Well, I'll break it down. Like if in 2 weeks you've got no showings, you're probably 10% or more overpriced. Okay. If nobody's coming to see your house in 2 weeks, you're way overpriced. Okay. If people are coming, but they're not making offers, you're probably in that 3 to 5 to 7% overpriced.
Yeah.
Okay. And if they're coming and they're making a ton of offers, then you're priced well or under, and it's way easier to recover being underpriced than over because multiple offers will drive the price back up.
Course, yes.
If you're overpriced and people think what's wrong with it, you're not going to get full price. They're going to beat you up on inspections and on repair requests and closing costs, all these things later. So you got to get an offer early. So pricing it is super important. Preparing it is what gets you the showings and what gets you the offers early. So you got to have especially in today's market, you got to have your house showing like a model home.
Yeah.
There's too many new construction options out there. And with everybody looking on Zillow and HGTV and they're seeing all these perfectly staged homes, that's your competition.
Yeah.
So you got to prepare it
Sunset.
perfectly.
Selling Sunset get the
Oh,
get the stylist in.
I can't watch that show. I put it on one time and I was like, oh, these people.
Oh, you'd be
terrible.
perfect on that.
Oh my god.
Terrible.
I'm going to sign you up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to move to California. Yeah.
Hey, you could start one here in Raleigh, selling.
How hard is
Raleigh.
it
Selling
to
ITB.
how hard is it to price a place? Because like when we were buying in 2021, it was so hard to get comparables.
Yeah.
That was the other challenge. And when we were applying for the loan and stuff, we're worried about the appraisal coming in to be able to get the loan. That was a challenge.
So pricing a home as a listing agent is like equal parts art and science, right?
Like making
And
a coffee.
Data.
Like making a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly like that.
That's why I'm terrible at making coffees.
Yeah.
Well,
which part are you terrible at? The art or the science?
Yeah, both.
That's why your coffee is horrible.
I can make a latte and a nice long black.
That seems like more science, I would imagine. So with pricing a home, right? So here's the science part, right? I look at the data. I look at what similar homes in the immediate area have sold for in the last, depending on the market, 30, 60, 90 days. Okay, I want to see what's selling immediately at 30 days and go back and see at 90 days, is it trending up or is it trending down? That's where a little bit of the art also blends into it.
Yeah.
But I want to use homes that are about plus or minus 5 to 10% of square footage. So they're similar, very similar. And if you can get in the exact subdivision, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then you look at the age of the home, and then does it have a 2-car garage or a 1-car? Like what's different there, and how many bedrooms? So there's all these things that sort of play into it to give us ranges.
Yeah.
And then what I do with those ranges is I then go through the person's home, see how much work needs to be done just to make it like look like somewhat marketable, and then all the way like to make it look like a model home. And I give people a full report. Like if you do A through Z, you're going to be at the top of the market. And if you do just A or none of it, you're going to be at the bottom of the market. And I give you this range. And we look at them together and I say, okay, here's what I think the range is for your home. If you don't do anything to prepare for your home, if we just sell it as is right now, you're probably in this range. And then I say, if you do some of the things on my list, you're probably in this range. And if you do all the things on my list, you're probably on this range.
Yeah.
And then I let the seller decide because it's their home. They want to know, they know what they want to get for it. I'll tell them if I think they're off base or if they're crazy, because if the data doesn't back it up, I might tell them, you know what, I'm not the ideal person for you. I'm not going to come in and be like, yeah, your home's worth $1 million. Let's get a sign in the yard. And then 2 days later say, it's really 500,000.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anybody any favors. That's bad for me. It's bad for them.
No. Yeah.
So I'll give them their ranges. We try to decide together, but I let them drive the boat a little bit at that point. And if it makes sense and if they're willing to prepare it, that's your pricing and your preparation. And then the third piece is the promotion, what you do to actually market the house. Most agents, they just put a sign in the yard and put it on MLS, which does do a lot because that's where so many websites are syndicated from and pull information from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that we do to get the house sold, but those are the 3 main things.
Yeah.
Do you feel in the market that's in Raleigh, given the short time on the listings, is there a lot of that promotion that has to be done?
I think so. I mean, I'm never going to cut corners on that, no matter what market we're in. I think that's a slippery slope for people to kind of start doing. But I still think so because, you know, although there's low inventory, there's not an abundance of buyers right now. There are buyers buying, but it's made it much more challenging because of the higher interest rates, which has made affordability harder.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I just had a thought, like growing up in Australia or anywhere in the world, I guess when you think about real estate, when we're buying our house, you always thought, how much do we offer under asking? But when we bought in 2021 during the complete madness, it's like, how much do we have to offer over asking?
Yeah.
What are people doing right now? Is that still
It depends.
that game?
A lot of variables. That's number 3. So
you said at least 12 times. we need a counter. So
Be a good drinking game, this one.
That's 3. How many times can Chuck? How many times can Chuck say depends, and how many times can Craig say variables?
Do you ever go to Cold Stone Creamery? Plug, you guys, are they a sponsor of yours yet?
No.
They're about to be.
No, if you're not,
They're
you're
about to
listening?
be.
Hello. No.
I think it's them. If it's not, they're not going to be a sponsor. But they have like this, like it, love it, gotta have it sort of thing. I think that's where it was, and that's the way I advise home buyers too. When I'm on the buyer representation side and we see a home that's listed for sale, whatever it is, $500,000. One, I'm going to reverse engineer it to see what market value is, just like I was that listing agent. Based on their preparation, based on comparables, I'm going to find out if it's priced appropriately. That helps me then advise the buyers on how to make an offer. If it's priced overpriced, then it might make sense to come in lower. If it's right on target, it might make sense to come in higher. But I let them know, I'm like, if you just like this house and you're okay if you don't get it and you're just looking for a deal and you want to try and make it happen, here's the range that's probably most likely going to give us a shot at that. If you love this house, here's how I would advise you to make an offer. But if you have to have this house, if we've seen 10 houses and we've lost out on 4 and the baby's due in a month or the job change is happening or whatever these other things are happening in your life, then we might have to go over a price. But it really depends on how it's listed. In 2020 to 2022, I think the number was 87% of homes sold for over asking price.
Yeah, wow.
So almost 9 out of 10 homes were selling for over asking price. That's not the statistic right now. I don't know what it is, but it's not that.
That's promising.
But some still are.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. Like we were pretty fortunate. The third place that we made an offer on, we got and that was over a couple of weeks. We heard stories of people like 12 months.
It was like a week.
Multiple offers and didn't even get close. But like the first 2 homes, there was one that we really wanted and we offered 150K over asking. And we thought, we're in the game here. We weren't even close. We were like 100,000.
Yeah.
Not even in the race. So, and plus 50K due diligence down. I'm like, wow.
This would be a good time to talk about due diligence.
Yeah. Because it's just a North Carolina thing, correct?
As far as I know, it is. I'm only licensed in North Carolina, and every other person that's moved here or agents in other areas that I've spoken with, when I tell them about this, they're like, we don't do that. So I haven't found another place that does it like we do.
Yeah.
So North Carolina is what's called an as-is state. When you buy property in North Carolina, you're buying it as is. The sellers are not required to fix or repair anything at all. Now, it's been customary tradition that there's often a negotiation that happens after a buyer has a home inspection and it lists, items 1 through 5 or 7 or 12, whatever it is. And the buyer can then go to the seller and say, hey, I would really appreciate it if you would fix these or give me money and I'll fix these later. There's a negotiation that happens. Yeah. Sellers have the right to say, nope, go away. Or they can say, yes, I will do all of those, or they can say, I'll do some of those, right? But they don't have to. But what happens, and there's also no contingencies in our contract. There used to be, when I first started in 2008, we used to be able to have a contingency in there. If you had a house to sell before you could buy this one, if that house didn't sell in X number of days or whatever, you could get out of this contract. We don't have any of those anymore. There's no financing contingencies. There's no contingencies to sell another home. It just is, when you write a contract, you're buying that house. But what they came up with, the state, the real estate commission, was to give you an out if things change, if you lose your job, if you find a better house, if the wind just blows a different direction and you don't want to buy that house anymore. They wanted you to get out without having to breach the contract and have some sort of legal issue later. So the way out of that contract is called a due diligence fee. It's an amount of money that you pay the seller to basically walk away for any reason or no reason. It allows you a window of time to fully inspect the house, do whatever you want to do to it, and then make your decision. I wish we had the ability to inspect homes before you make an offer. That would make sense, right?
Yeah.
You're like, let me see if I really want to buy this, but it's backwards. Here, you decide you want to buy the house, then you inspect it, and then that inspection either confirms that you want to buy it, or something comes up where you're like, yeah, I want to get out. Yeah. You could also get out if you just didn't get the loan you wanted. I mean, it doesn't matter what the reason is. You can get out.
Yeah.
So that due diligence fee is paid directly to the seller when they accept your offer. You don't pay them, and then if you don't actually get the house, you don't lose your money. But it's basically, and I hate saying this because everybody thinks this is totally dumb, but what it is you are showing good faith. You're putting some skin in the game, they say. Yeah. To have,
I've heard that a few times.
It's so stupid, but it's kind of the way this is looked at. Like you're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller or Mr. Seller, Miss Seller, whatever it is. Here's this amount of money. This is how serious I am about buying your house. Now, sellers want that money to be really, really high because it's non-refundable. And they're taking their house off the market. Once it goes pending, nobody else can make, or they can make offers, but nobody else can buy the house, right? So the sellers have a little bit of risk in the game because if that house has to go back on the market it's less desirable now because it sold once, came right back on right away, and everybody's going to think, what's wrong with this one?
With it, yeah.
Right? So sellers have a little bit of risk. So they want this number to be really high. Buyers agents, we want that number to be really low. I don't want people risking money needlessly, especially when cash is tight, affordability is challenging, right? So what was it, 10 years ago, 12 years ago? This used to be like $200.
Yeah, I was going to say, pre-pandemic, it was, well, I heard like 500, maybe $2,000 like would be high, but
it grew steadily.
But you heard of some figures during the pandemic, like up to $100K.
I had a client do that.
Like, that's insane.
And now, what is it?
So again, there's no standard number. It's completely negotiable between buyer and seller. But typically what we see is somewhere around 1%. But it really depends.
This is a calculation
on the house.
Yeah.
Depends on the area. So say a $500,000 house, you could reasonably expect your deposit to be somewhere around $5,000.
The due diligence deposit.
Yeah, so that's the number I kind of use as a gauge if there's no other offers on the table yet. If there's other offers and now the seller's trying to figure out which offer to take, a higher deposit will set your offer apart. But let's say it's 1%, $5,000. If there's no other offers on the table, maybe you offer a portion of that in due diligence. Maybe a portion of it is in what's called earnest money. And earnest money could be refundable. Buyers could get that back if they get out of the contract before a certain window of time. So it's less cut and dry that money goes right to the seller.
Yeah.
So if we're the first offer in and I'm trying to protect my buyers, we might offer some due diligence and some earnest money. It's more than likely the seller comes back and says, yeah, we want all that in due diligence, but it's a negotiation. We got to figure it out.
Yeah, cool.
And if the seller, if you've paid your due diligence and the seller for whatever reason backs out, they then have to return that due diligence money?
The seller, so the only way, that's a really strong word, but I'm pretty certain the only way a buyer gets their due diligence back without actually buying the house is if the seller breaches the contract.
Okay.
The seller has to sell you the house once you agree to terms. If they don't, for whatever reason, that due diligence money will go back to the buyer. There's other cases where maybe it could be argued that money gets returned, but I tell my clients, be prepared that it's going to go away. And did have one person do 6 figures in 2021 to get a house.
What price point of a house was that?
That house, if I remember correctly, was priced somewhere in the low 600s.
Wow.
So here's what happened for their story.
I thought you were going to say over $1 million.
No. So we'd been looking for probably 6 to 8 months. We had lost out on a few multiple offers. They were 8 months pregnant, about to have their first baby, ready to get into a home. And they had their sights set on one neighborhood. We'd been looking everywhere, but their dream neighborhood, nothing ever came available. Yeah. This house came available, and it was in what's called coming soon, which means you can't actually go see it yet. It's just basically some advertising, marketing time where they say, this house will be available in 3 days, 10 days, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even go into the house yet. And purely on its location, no photos of the inside, nothing else, we made an offer on the house, $100,000 over asking price with $100,000 in non-refundable due diligence money after not seeing the house. And I actually said, I think this is a very risky idea. I don't think I would do it. But they were like, we don't care. We're willing to take the risk. We got it. And when we walked inside, we all just collectively held our breaths and like, I hope this looks good. I hope this looks good. And the house was great. It was perfect. Good. They loved it. They're super happy there, but it was the biggest gamble. And I don't encourage people to do that.
No.
But this was in the height of things that you guys were experiencing too.
And as you said, there was a pressure for them because they're about to have a baby.
Yeah, they had all that pressure there.
Yeah, $100K is a lot of skin in the game for a $600,000 price point. Well, regardless of the price point.
But at that point, like, you have to start asking yourself, what would it take for me to have to walk away from this, right? Like, why would I walk away from $100,000? Like, there'd have to be some major issues wrong with that house. And if they're looking at it like, well, clearly anything can change, but if they're like, we're going to live here for the next 5, 10, 20 years, like, something pretty bad would have to be there for that.
Just on that, like, if you're putting a lot of skin in the game and you can't do your inspections until after that negotiation, what are some red flag, like obviously structural is a costly thing. What are some red flags that you would be hesitant to move forward with such a big fee?
So in my whole career, I've never had a client lose their due diligence money. Never. So we've never walked away from it. And I think part of the reason why we've been so successful with that is while we're doing that first showing, we are looking this place top to bottom as best as we can. Now, I'm not a home inspector, right? But I have enough experience where I can look in the crawl space for red flags like standing water. I can look for ductwork hanging down or
HVACs are a big ticket item.
Big time. I can look at the roof and see how worn it is, or if there's, anything visible wrong with it, lifted shingles, filled gutters, wood rot around the outside. I can go in the attic and see if there's, I love to show homes when it's raining, because if we can go in the attic and see any water in there, we got a big problem. Yeah. Right? Same thing with crawl spaces. So we can look in the attic for these things. We can look at the age of the appliances. Those are the major red flags. Those cost them the most.
Yeah, you can do
termites?
A few things.
I can't tell if there's termites are there or not yet, but that's usually, I can't if there's major damage. If there's the evidence of termites, I can't really tell on that. Termite inspection will, but I'm more looking for, if all the floor joists are black, like that could be an organic growth.
Yeah, if there's a fungus or mold, if there's water damage.
Now, I always advise people, I'm not an inspector, you can't take my word on it. But while I'm in there looking for these potential red flags, and if we decide to make an offer on that house, that comes into play when we're talking about how much we offer and also how much due diligence. So I help guide them with that. But again, we've never had anybody pull away and lose their money.
There's obviously we spoke about a lot of people moving in from outside of Raleigh, from outside of North Carolina, and probably they don't know where to start because they don't know the area and stuff. What are some things you recommend for people coming in? How do they start this approach to home buying in Raleigh, North Carolina?
Yeah, it's a good question because there's a million things they can do, and it can be...
Depends.
Yeah, it depends.
I'll give you a number 4.
I don't know if I would say it depends on this one, because I think I might actually have an answer.
I could have jumped in there. There's a lot of variables to look at.
I think I have an answer. What I do is I start with I call it a buyer orientation. We can do it in person or we do it on Zoom. And with so many people moving here, usually doing it online is very, very simple.
Very easy.
And with that 1 hour to 90 minutes time, I'm doing some investigating. I'm finding out, how many bedrooms and bathrooms they want, but you can find that house in 25 different areas in a triangle, right? And the right house in the wrong area is the wrong house, right? So the area is so important, and that's the number one thing. But I want to uncover beds, baths, how do you live, what's your backyard like? And then the bigger questions are, what do you do when you're not home? Where do you like to spend your time? If you were to go for a walk, where would you want to walk to? I want to start to ask these questions to really figure out what their lifestyle looks like outside of their 4 walls, right? So from that first meeting, that first kind of get to know you, I can then have a general idea of some areas that will work or not work. It's still going to be pretty wide. And so what we do is I then set up a search on our multiple listing service or on my website where they can have email listings emailed to them that fit their nuts and bolts criteria. And then they can reject them or they can favorite them. Now what happens is that as they start to favorite them, it starts to sort of funnel down into, we start to see some patterns. Well, they really like this area or this type of home. So it starts to narrow it down a little bit for me, which is really, really helpful.
Yeah. Good filtering.
Big time. And then from there, buying a home is the process of elimination. It just is. It's unfortunate, but it's rarely we find the perfect house. We're usually saying, no, this one won't work. This one won't work. This one could work, that sort of thing. Yeah. But the area being so important, I got to get them here. So once they get to town, what I love to do is I want to spend some time with them, but I also want them to spend some time just getting to know our area. So what we do is based on their favorited homes that we have in our search set up, in some areas that they've identified based on things they've told me, but also just the style of home they've chosen and any patterns we start to see evolve there. I'm going to create basically a tour for them for their first 24 to 48 hours being in town. And some of this they're going to do on their own, and they're going to spend some time driving around. And what I love about what you guys do is I pull your favorite places and your guides to specific neighborhoods and things to do when you only have 48 hours in town. And so I take that information and I put it together in basically a handbook, so to speak, for them of what to do in your first 24 to 48 hours. And while you're driving around, because the photos could look great, right? We could see a house where the photos look perfect.
Yeah.
But when you drive by and you see maybe what's surrounding
stuff can be edited out.
Yeah, for sure. And that's marketing, right?
That's like travel. We have an international travel website, and on our Instagram and social media is like you'll see these beautiful places of travel destinations, but outside of the lens could be just trash and terrible everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if I'm selling someone's house, I'm not going to highlight the neighbor's burning tire pile next door. That doesn't help, right?
Yep.
And so these people got to see that on their own. And it's not a good use of the agent's time or the person's time to do all of this together. So some of it's a good use of their time to do on their own schedule.
I like that, because when you like just thinking about us going around with that agent when we were house hunting, because you obviously have time and your time is about showing the property. You then don't get a chance to experience the neighbourhood in the way that you normally would. You need to have time to absorb that, go and sit in a cafe or go have lunch somewhere, and then you save the time for house hunting when you are much clearer on where it is.
That's right. I mean, you're going to rule out a lot by the exterior, by the way the house looks, the way it's positioned on the lot, which direction it faces that we might not know online, what the neighbors' houses look like, what it looks like driving into that subdivision from the next one.
Sure.
So all of these things play a big role in it, that often if we schedule all these showings to go see these homes together, one, we might know the second we get there that it's not the house for you, that we've now inconvenienced the seller who had to let us show their house, the other agent. We've taken away from all of our time where maybe a quick drive-by could have done that pretty quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what I do is, now that we've narrowed it down, I send you out to explore some areas. I give them some of y'all's favorite places to go check out and see. And then we have a group text with me, my team, and the buyers. And I want them to update me as they go to subdivision. Yes, this one works. No, this one won't. Stopped and have coffee at the place you recommended. Love this place. Could see myself going to a place like this more often. So now we're keeping a running list of notes, and it's just narrowing that place down further, so that on day 2 or day 3 that they're here, we now schedule showings for their top 5 houses. Because if I have to show somebody 50 houses, it's going to be overwhelming. They're not going to remember all of them. It's going to blend together. Plus, in a hot seller's market, house 50 that we showed 2 days before could be gone by the time we see it. So we narrow it down to their top 5. We see those. And usually one of those is the one. And if not, we go to the next 5 for the next day. And that's a better use of everybody's time.
I love it. It's a really great way of approaching it.
Yeah, because neighborhoods or streets could change from morning to evening. As far as noise, you could be on a flight path. You could be near a noisy school.
That's right.
And the other thing I thought of, if somebody's relocating here for a job, you could potentially drive that commute and see how long it's going to take you. That's one of the things
we tell them.
But because I mean, obviously your house is important. You want to have a great house. But if you hate your commute and your life, maybe it's not the right house.
That's a big part of it. In that buyer orientation, we ask them, okay, so will you be working? Where will you be working? How long do you want to commute? Because they may see online that a house, like they may work in, say, Fuquay, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, wow, these houses in Apex look amazing, and I only want to drive 30 minutes. Well, that's not going to be where you want to live. But these houses look amazing. But I'm like, if you don't want to drive more than 30 minutes, that's not the spot for you.
Yeah, if your job's in at SAS and Carey and you want to live in Wake Forest, that's a big commute. That's from north to west. To west or southwest, and
you're going with everybody else. And so that really, they've got to experience a little bit. And we make them, or not make them, we ask them to drive it. We say, check it out in the morning, check it out in the evening. So we try to do all these things before we go see homes, because it's just a better use of their time and for their energy. Because it's a lot to look at 5 homes in a day or 10 homes in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is. And in all the different neighborhoods as
For
well.
sure.
That's a huge task that
For
nobody
sure.
needs to be doing.
And I think agents that do that for clients are doing them a disservice by just overwhelming them unnecessarily. There's a I think a more strategic way to do it, to actually help people find what they're looking for, versus just being like, sure, let's see everything.
Yeah.
Because although people like you want to see a lot of houses before they make a decision, like if you see too many, you're going to shut down.
Oh yeah. That's
it's
me.
like
We knew we wanted the area we wanted to live in. I think we saw like 5 homes. I was done. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yes. Okay. I'm over it.
It is true. It is true. Analogy I use, I get frustrated. Like you go to a restaurant and the menu is just humongous.
Yes.
It's so hard to make a decision.
Yeah.
But if you go and there's just like a 1-page menu with like 3 or 4 items for appetizers, entree, dessert, it's so much simplified.
That's right.
And the other question I was going to, you probably get this a lot because we do. We spoke about people moving here for jobs and their commute, but families like schools are a massive concern. They want to be in the best school district and near the best schools and stuff like that. How do you think about that and approach that?
Oh man,
I know it's a big topic. And I'm not going to say my word.
It's a lot of variables.
There are a lot of variables at play, depending on the age of your kid and their learning capabilities. And oh man,
the hardest part to answering that question is I can't answer it really, and it's because with fair housing laws and guidelines, I can't comment on what good schools means. Because that's a subjective thing as well, right? What I can do is I can point people to websites that have school rankings and have statistics for crime and things like that. But commenting on crime and good versus bad schools, I could be in violation of fair housing laws.
Sure.
So for me, what I like to do is, one, I want to find out, what good school means to them. Okay, because that's, I think, is different for everybody. What does good school mean to you? What sort of activity should that school have? What are your children? What are their goals? What are they into? Is it athletics, academics? Is it the arts? Different things like that. And then what I honestly like to do, and to give her a plug, is I work with Libby at School Up Wake.
Yeah.
And what she does, she's a school consultant who doesn't have a real estate license that can say whatever's on her mind about schools.
Yep.
And she can speak her opinion. So what I do is I like to make that introduction and help them narrow it down what school districts. Because the other thing too is, schools in our area, like, it's unlike most other states. Like, we have, you could live across the street from one school, but it'd be capped out, meaning if you bought a house right across the street, you might not get into that school and you'd be bused somewhere else. And some people can't wrap their brain around that.
Yeah.
And so if someone is coming to me from another area or from even within our area and says, my number one criteria is this school district, it's a tough conversation. We have to talk through a lot of things. And I also try to bring Libby in as soon as possible. Yeah,
we've had Libby on the podcast before, and we recommend her as well, because we have a lot of people asking us. And I think in Wake County, it is just, there's just so many options, which is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you could live out of zone to the nearest public school, but you have options that could get you in schools in the place you want to be. Like, it's pretty incredible, really, the options that are available. But you really want to be speaking to someone who knows a lot about it. Yeah.
My sort of default to like sort of pass the buck and get myself out of it is like, I'm homeschool. I have no idea.
It's overwhelming for us from Woolhouse. And we're moving from Australia, like everyone, you just go to the local public school.
Yeah.
Coming to the US, I don't know if it's like this in every city and county, but like there's public schools, there's charter schools, there's magnet schools, there's Montessori schools, there's private. Like, it's endless. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree completely. It's where I grew up. Whatever school was within X number of blocks of your house, that's the one you walked to, and that's where you went.
Yeah.
And you didn't have options. And so it's a tough one here. So it really is, when I have clients that schools are their hot button, their thing, it's a conversation that goes on and on for a while that I have to be somewhat cautious how I navigate, but using resources
what are some of those website resources? Off the top of your head?
So I don't have them in front of me, but yes, I have a list of them that I actually email people.
What's it? Grade schools or something? Is that one?
I forget what it is.
Grade schools?
But I actually have, after my orientation, I have kind of a template that I email people. Okay. And it's got a list of all the crime websites and school websites that I use. Also, Wake County has a lookup. You can put your address in there to see what school would be your base school and if it's capped or not. So I use all those for definitely people that are coming to Wake County. I apologize, I don't have it on the top of my head, but I've got a whole template that I use that I can give you if you want to add those to show notes.
Yeah, we will. And then, anyone that's coming in looking to buy, then Chuck's a valuable resource as a
Absolutely.
buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And you'll have all that stuff that you can
For
pass
sure.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
if he doesn't know the answer or we don't know the answer, we know somebody who does.
That's
like you
right.
said, like
We
Libby,
do,
like the
Libby.
expert.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go on about the schools. But the other thing is the year-round versus traditional calendars, which can be unusual for people. And
That's one of the
And
questions,
if you have
too.
more than one kid on two different calendars, that can be hard if you're both working parents. So it's like, oh boy.
It is an interesting place to live when it comes to schools.
It
I'm
is.
trying to spook
Keeps us on our
anyone and
toes.
scare people
No,
off. But
it's a
trying
fabulous
to
You don't want to move here.
trying
Never mind.
trying to keep it real. Like, so your expectations are in order.
No, it's true, and I think we've been able to navigate that successfully. I can't think of one failed time where someone's main objective was being in a certain school or had a vision of what that perfect school looked like to them that we weren't able to figure it out for them. So we've got the right people in place, the right systems in place to help them. It's just kind of a delicate conversation.
Yeah, and generally the school in Wake County is pretty good. Actually, two of the schools I just heard on the news recently top best schools in the USA. So
Yeah.
two schools from Wake County. So
Look at that. It's probably my homeschool.
in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Oh, your homeschool, mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too. It was called Makepeace Academy.
That's right.
Yours is Belden Academy.
Belden Academy for the Gifted.
She's the principal. I don't know what I am.
Yeah. I'm the PE teacher.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's fine. Before we wrap up, can you sort of give some insight into some areas at the moment that, I don't know, are on the up or that are popular or suit certain type of people, whatever you can comment on in regards to that?
Can I say it depends?
Yes, you can.
There's
Well, it depends.
I like-
I'm going to title this podcast,
these
It
up.
Depends.
People are like, yeah, we got it. Yes. So, there is the way I look at kind of what's happening on generally speaking, right? If you look at Raleigh with, downtown Raleigh with our belt line that goes around it, almost everything within our belt line, definitely on the north side, the northwest side, southwest side for sure, and growing on the south and the east side, those areas forever have been like going like crazy. They sell super quickly. There's so many people moving here that want to be close to the urban center, and Raleigh being our hub when it comes to Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and surrounding areas. That's always a place that people are honing in on if they want that urban lifestyle, right? And so within that, like there's just so many, like 5 Points. I have so many people that want to be in 5 Points. Like it's just such a wonderful, livable area, walkable. People that want to.
Yes.
I want to be in 5 Points,
Right? I mean,
or somewhere like 5 Points.
It's great.
Yeah.
Like now in there, what you're seeing is it's super competitive. There's a lot of because there's no land to build anything new on. So what you're seeing is a lot of investors, builders, developers are buying homes,
tearing
them down and putting up new construction.
Well, that happened a lot in North Hills as well, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
I believe?
North Hills is another one of those areas. So that 5 Points all the way up to North Hills, like those areas forever have been just things that are just the market's just on fire.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you've got, and the way I think this area historically developed, especially with the growth of RTP, was then it spilled all over into Cary, right? Cary is where, if you're moving here from outside of the area, every single person knows about Cary.
Yeah.
Every single person. And Cary constantly is voted as like the safest place to live in America,
Isn't
and the
that
best
great?
for this and the best for that. And so Cary forever, if the home's priced right, it's gone. It's gone quickly. And those prices, just like inside the Beltline Raleigh, continue to stay stable or climb. Now, they're not climbing at the 2021, 2022 pace, but they're still going up. And then because Cary is so desirable, generally speaking, and so hot, things spill over to Apex.
Yeah.
Right? And so Apex is like very similar to Cary.
Yep.
And so these areas like Cary, Apex, Morrisville, that's all experiencing that same thing as North Raleigh and ITB is. What's happened for a while, and then Chapel Hill and Durham, they have their own individual markets. Chapel Hill, I think, has been appreciating over like year after year after year.
Right.
That's not going backwards. Durham, I think, is developing its own identity in the last 10 to 15 years. It's not Raleigh, Durham anymore. It's Raleigh or Durham, right? So, and they have different vibes.
They do.
And so like if you're drawn to Raleigh, downtown Raleigh, you might not be drawn to downtown Durham and vice versa.
Vice versa.
Right. But both of those are strong markets. And then what's happening is on the east side of Raleigh, Knightdale, Wendell, I believe, I was going to say, don't quote me, but I'm speaking. So I believe that Knightdale is like the fastest or second fastest growing municipality in North Carolina right now. And it's right on the east side of Raleigh. You can be downtown in a matter of minutes. So a lot of people, because the prices haven't got to where the Cary, Apex, Morrisville prices are bet. A lot of people are looking over there. So those areas are going really quickly, and there's more land there. So developers are putting in new subdivisions. So you can get new construction, pretty nice, brand new house nobody's ever lived in before for the price that you would get something that's 30 years old in one of these other markets.
Closer to the beach too, if you're on the east side.
You can be closer to the beach, that's right. A little further from the airport, but not too bad.
It depends on your priorities.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, every area within these areas, some are really strong, some less, but I think the ones that I mentioned are the ones that a lot of people are focusing on right now.
Yeah. If you're listening from out of the area, just want to mention while we're talking about that, Raleigh to Durham is like 30 minutes typically, depending on traffic. Chapel Hill is probably like 40 minutes from Raleigh. And Wake Forest is probably 25 minutes from downtown
Wake
Raleigh.
Forest,
roughly.
super hot right now.
Cary downtown to Raleigh downtown, like 15, 20 minutes. And then you easy access to RDU Airport and RTP. There's like a ton of people working RTP.
Then we've got the 540 that'll be completed. I don't know when, but that will
a lot too. That's supposed to be completed in 4 years, from what I understand, the full loop by 2028. And that's going to connect that southeast side of Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Knightdale, Wendell, all those areas. And then I would expect some major growth happening over there. It's already happening. But Clayton, that's kind of a sleeper area. There's a lot of people moving to Clayton. It's got a great downtown.
Yeah, downtown Clayton.
And it's not far from Raleigh.
No.
Really?
I think it's just...
with 540, it'll be even easier.
Yeah, because I think the commute's the infrastructure is a bit of a challenge coming in from Johnston County right now.
You're seeing a lot of people from all different areas, but moving here from out of the area, looking at Clayton.
Yeah. Well, they get more for their money, but more land as well, right?
And I think Johnston County, which is where most of Clayton is, if not all of Clayton.
Yeah, it's all in Johnston.
I believe it's got a lower tax rate than Wake County. So you see people that are focused on that looking at Johnston County.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the downtown there too, for people who are interested in what's available when they're living there, that's like really booming. They're getting some great restaurants and bars and things in the downtown.
Yeah, you're getting Raleigh restaurateurs moving there. Crawford's got a place that's really good.
And they have a great whiskey bar there that we love too.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, Revival.
Oh, yeah. I've been
Revival
1869, is it?
something like that. It's Revival something.
Yeah.
That's a great bar.
Okay, I have been in there. I know where it is.
One question I wanted to ask before I forget. How do you think about approach buying new construction versus existing? What are that's a different challenges? What are a few things to think about?
I love new construction. I like pretty shiny things. I like carpet that's never had
dirty feet on it.
So I guess when you have that initial call with your clients, your buyers, like, they check what's their priority.
I asked
do they like new things, or are they happy in an existing neighborhood and with mature trees and stuff like that? Yeah,
there's pros and cons, right? So like a mature neighborhood that's going to have 50, 100-year-old trees, a new construction neighborhood may not, right? New home neighborhood, homes are probably going to be a little bit closer together than they might be in some more older, more established neighborhoods, because the builders and developers are trying to maximize every square inch. So there's a lot of variables when it comes to it. But new construction, so one of the things I want to say about new construction is many buyers of new construction think they don't need to have an agent represent them. And that is so wrong. And 100% of the time, you should have an agent represent you, because although you walk into a model home and there's a super helpful salesperson there, that person represents the builder.
Right. Yeah.
It's not their job to protect your best interests. Now, they're not supposed to lie to you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? But they are supposed to sell whatever they're trying to sell. Okay? So, number one, you should have somebody looking out for you. Number two, the way real estate commissions work currently in North Carolina is that buyers' agents earn their income through the sellers offering a cooperating commission. So basically what that means, short and sweet, is currently, and this could change, but currently as of today, May the I don't know if we're evergreen this, May 3rd, 2024, a buyer can have an agent represent them and not have to pay out of pocket for it. Okay. So why wouldn't you have somebody represent you, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going into this not knowing what you don't know. So there's that. There's my plug for having an agent represent you. When you go into new construction, if you're building from the ground up, it could be a 8 to 10 month or longer process with a bunch of different milestones along the way, where a good agent representing you can help you navigate, drywall inspections and electrical inspections, and help you choose, things that help your resale value of the home versus over personalizing it. So there's a lot of value they can add to it.
Yeah. All the add-ons. You get your stock standard price, and then you can add on a million things, which raises the cost.
And then if you, hopefully you don't have to sell in a year. Hopefully nothing terrible happens where something happens to your family or your work situation where you've got to move. But if you have to move in a year and you've just built the most expensive house on the street, it can be upside down when you have to sell it. So there's a lot of conversations that can happen through that. But I think the biggest part of the whole thing is some people want to do all that and some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people are okay with a resale home because it's in a neighborhood that is more established. Some are okay taking the risk on a newer construction home. And then the other part of it is the negotiation piece of it. It sometimes there's a lot of room to negotiate with a builder, and sometimes there's none. If a builder has a number of homes that are built that they're trying to sell, trying to get off their books, there might be room to negotiate.
Yeah.
A individual seller selling their home in Cary, Apex, wherever, might not negotiate at all in today's market. So it kind of it's a specific case every single time.
Yeah.
But I love new construction. I've sold so many new construction homes. I used to work for a custom builder here. I love that part of the business. I like it a lot.
Is there still a materials delay and labor shortage?
No.
Like, because it could quite a process.
Yeah.
Like,
there was a lot for 2020.
That's kind of caught up.
Yeah, no, I think everything's caught up. There were labor issues. There were lumber shortage. Lumber pricing went through the roof. That came back down. Drywall was coming in from China that was having issues. There was HVAC components that were delayed. Cabinets couldn't get made fast enough in factories. There were all these things. I don't see any delays with that right now across the board. There might be some one-offs here and there, but I think for the most part, they've gotten things pretty streamlined and figured out.
And do you think typically people who are doing new construction need to have more time for buying?
Yeah.
They have to, unless the new construction's already completed.
Like if they're selling an existing home or whatever, or they're trying to time selling an existing home with buying a new one's hard.
So each conversation is going to be different. If someone has a home to sell before they buy, often new construction's a way to go because it's easier to time new construction because we know the builder has a timeline they're going to keep to, right? And they've got these milestones. And although they may miss by a few days here or there, or maybe a week here and there, there's no major delays happening right now. So if you've got 9 months or 6 months or 4 months to prepare for your home selling in some other market and buying the one here, that's awesome because you can go under contract on it, put down a deposit. Nobody else is going to buy that house. And now you've got time to do all those other things to your house to sell it. Sometimes that's way easier than trying to negotiate with a seller, an individual seller, because that seller wants to sell their house in the next 30 to 60 days.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So and with no contingencies, if you don't get your house on the market and sold, you could lose out in your due diligence money.
Yeah.
Buyers or builders rather, maybe could be a little more forgiving, maybe.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. But I think if your timing is of major importance, new construction often allows that.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
good insight. Well, that's awesome. This has been great chatting with you.
Fun.
Chuck.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hopefully it wasn't boring. That was all fun.
No. It's all
Not at all.
interesting.
It's fun for us.
So interest rates are what right now? Roughly?
Mid sevens.
It's I know you're not the Fed or an economist. What's the word on the street about what they're doing?
You
don't
know? If you or anybody asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have told you you were nuts if you thought they were still going to be mid sevens right now. I really thought 6 months ago we'd be low sixes, maybe high fives, right? I thought that we were trending down. So I clearly have no idea about rates. So I'm surprised that they're as high as they are. I would imagine that they start trending down. Who knows? But here's one solution. Here's what's I don't want to say here's what's good about this, but here's how you navigate this, okay? And this is what a lot of people miss. There's a lot of people, I think, sitting on the sidelines right now waiting for rates to come down. They're just going to wait. And here's why I think that could be a bad idea. Across the board, I can't say if it is or if it isn't, but why this could be a bad idea. Right now with higher interest rates, there's fewer buyers buying. That means less competition. If rates come down, or when rates come down, more buyers come into the market, increases competition. That means prices go back up. So, and they go fast. So right now, with pricing being stable or steadily climbing and less competition, now is the best time to get a home at list price or under. You've got the best opportunity to do that. If rates come down, I heard for every 1% that rates come down, something like 5 million buyers enter the market nationally.
Amazing.
Okay. So if you want to get a home, if you're in the market, waiting could cost you more.
Yeah.
So if 1% comes down, but the prices go up 10%, you've totally just lost out, right? So keeping that in mind. The other thing, there's some creative financing going on right now. There's things where you can buy down your interest rate. So there's something called a 2-1 buy down, where you can lower your interest rate a full 2 percentage points for the first year, 1 percentage point for the second year, and in year 3 it goes back to normal. And you can pay to do this. Okay. And so with creative negotiating, sometimes we can get the seller or the builder to pay for this, so the buyer doesn't even come out of pocket for it. So if you're looking at a home with a 7.5% interest rate, and I can get the seller or the builder to sell you that home at cost or whatever the deal we work out at, but buy your rate down to 5.5% for the first year and not have that competition that's out there, that's amazing. You're going to save way much more doing that than you are trying to get 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 off the sales price, right? So we do that. Year 2, if rates are still 7.5% or they're higher, you've just gone up to 6.5%. So you're still protected. If rates come down at any point during that 2-year period, you can refinance to that newer rate. So it is so helpful to get people in right now with something like that.
And that's why you have a buyer's agent.
And that's why you have an agent.
Because
and a good
you know
lender,
all of this.
And a really good lender. If you're going to buy a home, whatever market you're in, use a local lender. There's lots of online lenders out there, and I'm sure all of them or most of them are wonderful. But using someone that's local to the market you're buying in, that knows the market, knows things like this, and will answer the phone when you call, that's a big deal. Because if something's going to go screwy in a real estate deal, it's usually with financing.
Yeah, right. That's a really important point. I know our mortgage broker has told us the same thing about making sure you do the local lender, which I never thought about. But I was like, okay, that makes sense. So,
you know, there are plenty out there that everything will be fine, right? But I think that if you've got somebody that you know is on such and such street and here's their local cell phone number and you can just pick up the phone and call them, that goes a long way.
It does,
it really does.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do,
brilliant.
XYZ company, go through their email customer service. Like,
Yeah,
we've had April on our podcast before, our mortgage broker, April Young Blackwell from Blackwell Mortgage. And she was awesome.
Brilliant.
Particularly awesome if you're dealing with people like us, entrepreneurs online.
Yes. She deals with a lot of entrepreneurs.
I mean, that can open up another can of worms.
For sure.
Like declaring your income and all that sort of stuff and how your business is structured. It gets complicated.
Yeah, because you can't just get a loan like this anymore. How much money did you make?
Raise it up. Raise it up.
You're approved.
The big short days are over.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. So interest rates are out there. Time on market again. Remind me of rough
days on market's about 40 to 41 days right now, generally speaking.
And the average sales price was
it's like $399 right now. That's the median across the triangle.
Yeah.
That's been up and down from $380 to $420 for the last couple of years, but $400 right there is about what it's been for a few years now.
Yeah.
Is that for a certain number of bedrooms and square footage?
That's just the median sales price across the board. So what I like to advise buyers when we're shopping too is anything at or under that is flying off the shelves, especially with the way rates are. So if you're looking for a house under $400,000, good luck. Then there's this space from like 400 to like a million, maybe 800, 900,000. That's slowed down a little bit because, in my opinion, I don't have the data to back this up, but in my opinion, that's a price range where the buyer typically still is getting a loan and having to put a significant down payment down and having a higher interest rate. That price range is a little bit tighter right now. It's a little bit slower. $1 million and up, that more luxury buyer, if you will, often has more disposable income, maybe doesn't need a loan. Those are flying off the shelves too.
Yeah,
I mean, if
right.
you're looking for, depending on the neighborhood, but if you're looking at $1 million plus home, that's as competitive as under 400,000 right now.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, just on interest rates. Quick fun fact. Can you believe in Australia we can only get a 5-year fixed loan maximum?
I think you mentioned
and then we
that to
come
me
over
before.
here and we locked in at a low rate, thankfully, for 30 years, the term of the loan. Like, we
Wow.
couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So,
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, that's
over
probably
here. Yep.
okay. Yeah, that is interesting.
yeah.
Yep.
One of the hardest things when we're looking for a house is like, how many agents are there in Raleigh? Like thousands.
I've heard 12,000 in Wake County is what I've heard.
12,000 realtors in Wake
Yeah,
County.
but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, hardest thing was figuring out finding a realtor to work with to buy a house. So just, how do you differentiate yourself and the brokerage you work out of against those 10,000 plus other agents in the triangle?
I think I could tell you a million things about what I think makes me different and my firm different. But I also realize
I don't think you've mentioned the name of your firm yet.
Oh, Relevate Real Estate. Relevate is a conjunction. I need a grammar person to help here. It means real estate elevated, and it also means relationships elevated. So Relevate is what our company name is, because we focus highly on the personal relationship and doing real estate in a different and better way, taking care of our clients, I think, better than most. Okay. Now, I'm not naive to think that I'm the best fit for everybody. Like, I get that. So I think what people should do is I could give you a whole list of questions that you should ask your real estate agent when you're interviewing them. But I really think you've got to find somebody that you communicate well with, that's responsive to your needs, that's professional, that's not just doing this as a hobby, because out of those 10 to 12,000 real estate agents in Wake County, I think the average amount of sales, if you use all those people, is like 1 a year.
Yeah, right.
Maybe 2 a year.
Yeah, that's a crazy statistic.
If you're selling 1 house a year or 2 homes a year, I don't think you have the experience to fully be a fiduciary to take care of somebody in the way they deserve to be taken care of. I think back to the guy that I used, who I was his first client. Like, that was a terrible situation for me. Totally terrible. Not that brand new agents shouldn't be considered when you're looking at an agent, because I'm sure there are many that are wonderful and very educated and do a great job, but there's something that comes with experience, I believe. So, but you got to figure out what works best for you. Yeah. For me, what I do is the relationship is huge to me. I work 100% by referral. So I put so much pressure on me and my team to take care of the client we're working with, not only because they deserve it, but because if I don't, they're not going to refer me and I'm going to be out of business. And so I try to go so far above and beyond for the client because I want them to be in my life for a long time and hopefully to refer me business. So I put that added pressure on myself. And one of the ways I approach that is I want everybody to have a luxury, full service real estate experience, regardless of your budget. So if you're looking for a $200,000 home, I don't care. I want you to have that full service experience, just like my client's buying a $2 million home. And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and just to say again, so everyone listening understands, they don't have to pay for that service either, which is another great thing about working with
currently,
a buyer's agent.
who knows if that ever changes, but currently as of today, to have a buyer's agent represent you, well, one, read the paperwork, because there's no standard agreement. Every firm can come up with their own agreement. So when you're interviewing somebody, ask them what their buyer agency agreement looks like. And the way ours is written is our commission. Our firm seeks our commission from the seller and the seller's agent. Now, if that person's unwilling or unable to do it, we'll have a conversation with our buyer. But 99 times out of 100, if not more than that, if that's possible, comes from that seller's agent.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah,
Well,
this has
thank
been
you.
interesting, man.
thanks for having me.
Very helpful, insightful. I know we're going to have Chuck on once a quarter, hopefully,
Let's
because
talk
I know that
statistics.
do market updates, and obviously things can change quickly depending on rates and the time of year. Obviously, when people are more active in the market and buying and stuff
Seasonal.
like that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, Chuck can update us on anything that's hot, anything new that people need to think about. And, you know, as Craig mentioned, it can be overwhelming finding a agent, especially if you are new to this area and you don't even know where to start looking for agents. And so that's something we love to do with the work we do on our blog and our podcast and whatever, is save people that hassle, because they've got too many other things to think about. They got to think about where they want the kids to go to school, where do they want to live, you know, selling their own house. All of those things are way more important. And so we do all that sort of hard work in vetting someone like yourself who's trustworthy, professional, and we know gives that full quality service that you do. So
I have been known to refer people out to, if I feel like in that conversation I'm not a good fit based on communication styles or what they're looking for, if they're looking in an area I'm not familiar with, or if they're looking for a farm that I haven't helped many people buy farms, then I will refer people out that I trust as well.
Yeah.
And you did that for us when someone was looking for land and you were like, I'm not qualified in that, but here's someone I know who is. Yeah.
I think that was almost just as stressful, more stressful as buying the actual house, was finding the right agent. And the feel. Like we interviewed several agents as well. And plus you just got a feel for the person. Now, obviously you can do Zoom calls or whatever face to face. Like, I mean, back in the day, you could never do that. You'd actually have to be in the city and meet at a coffee shop or whatever, or in the office.
It's really important. So, I mean, if there's anything people take away from this, one, have an agent, whomever that is. And two, just, you know, interview people and see what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, buying a house is probably the biggest investment you'll make in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So
it's right up there with weddings and divorces and births and deaths, and then buying a house.
People are having,
it's emotional.
People are having $1 million weddings. Well, they are. Some people.
Maybe not the cost wise, but the emotional. People buy homes emotionally, and they rationalize it like logically, like they'll like try to convince them. But it's as emotional as weddings, funerals, births, deaths, buying a house. So like top 5 things.
That's crazy. It just made me think emotional. One interesting thing versus Australia over here, we're going to wrap up. We have a ton of auctions. You don't see that here.
Oh, yeah, not many, no.
So, that's way different. But we'll wrap it up. But guys, listen at home, if you've got any questions about real estate, you'd like to hear us chat about on the next podcast, or you want to know about them now, shoot us a message through our email or through our social media. We'll put all the links in the show notes, and we'll pass the tough ones on to Chuck, tough questions.
I got them.
Schools, you name it.
Not that one.
But thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks
Very
for having me.
insightful, and looking forward to the next chat and where rates go. And thanks for listening in. And if this was helpful, share it with your friends, share the love, and we look forward to sharing more insights in the next episode.
See you then, guys. Bye.
Bye.